in Nigeria and the way forward. I have joining me Dr. Kingsley Uzoma, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agribusiness and Productivity Enhancement, Office of the Vice President. You're welcome to Chiedozie Live.
Good evening.
Pleasure to have you join us.
Good evening, Nigerians.
And we have Professor Chiedozie Egesi, Executive Director, CEO, National Root Crops Research Institute, NRCRI, Abia State. Thank you so much.
Thank you
For joining us.
Thank
it's a
you,
pleasure to have you
Nigerians.
join us. And Kabir Shagaya, Director of Strategy, Cavista Holdings, is also joining us on this program.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we also have joining us via Zoom, Senator Sabi Aliyu, Honorable Minister of State, Agriculture and Food Security. He'll be joining us in the course of the program as the program progresses. Now let's hit the ground running on this topic that has been trending for a long time. Since 1999, there have been different initiatives on cassava production and industrialization, and now this government is finally putting it on the table. For some time, it has just been talk, and no implementation. Where are we now? What is the Tinubu administration trying to do with cassava?
Thank you for that. As you may be aware, there's never been a time where Nigeria hosted or celebrated the World Cassava Day. So that's the first point of trying to bring it to limelight. And it wasn't just celebrated at any other place, it was celebrated at the presidential level, at the presidential banquet hall, where the vice president, who is the chairman of the National Economic Council, presented a keynote address and stated the different opportunities within the different cassava derivatives. You know, and prior to that, in the August 2024 National Economic Council meeting, the Nigerian Cassava Investment Accelerator, which is spearheaded by the Boston Consulting Group and the Lagos Business School, was launched. And that was not launched because these private entities wants to do that. You know, it was launched because they had all of government approach and support given to them for them to leverage the seed funding that they're using to do the investment accelerator, and that is to, you know, orchestrate deals within the cassava ecosystem so that in the processing industry, if you look at the entire chain, you know, you have very vast opportunity, just like no other government has gone granular in trying to analyze what is in it as far as cassava is concerned, and how Nigeria has a competitive advantage in cassava, representing a largely untapped potential opportunities for industrialization, which will spur or boost economic activities in the country, especially within our farming communities, at the rural and peri-urban communities where this product is being farmed and likely to be processed. I will give you an instance. If prior to this in our pre-edition conversation, we talked about the cassava bread. If we can substitute, you know, 10%, if we are spending $3 billion on wheat importation, if we do substitution with 10% high quality high quality cassava flour, that is $300 million. If we take a very conservative estimate of $2 billion, that's 200 million. If we move it up to 20%, it's 400 million. If we move it up to 30%, it's 600 million. If we move it up to 40%, it's 800 million, which will contribute to our foreign exchange earning. You know, it's a combination of both import substitution, domestic value addition, and export earning, forest earning through export. I will take you another instance, sugar. If we take 2022 data, we spent 844 billion importing sugar into this country. And that's 70% of the sugar imported into this country is used for industrial consumption. So people will not have that, oh, I'm using cassava as my sugar. The puff you eat, the bread, the sugar, out of this 844 million, 70% purely for industrial, not for domestic table, kitchen table consumption. So we can actually substitute with at least 50%, and that will not even creep into the kitchen table consumption. That gives you $422 million. We talk about ethanol. Nigeria in same year imported ethanol worth $155 million. And the interesting fact there is that that $155 million was 504 million liters. But the local ethanol production capacity, installed capacity in Nigeria as of 2022 was 514 million liters. So we actually have installed capacity in excess of our consumption that can be served 100%. You talk about the sweeteners and syrups. We spend $77 million importing sweeteners and syrups. Most of the cough syrups, most of the sweeteners in Cavista, the rest of them are coming from the old cassava derivatives. Then you talk about the modified starch and adhesive. We spend $75 million importing this item. You talk about the food grade starch. We spent $35 million. You talk about sorbitol, your toothpaste, the rest of them, $101 million. So when you aggregate cumulatively, this is between, depending on the substitution percentage of the high quality cassava flour, this is between 1 billion to 1.6 billion you can serve internally. And then you move, this is just in one point, you talk about the domestic market. Because when the prices of, after the Russia-Ukraine war, the prices of the basic staples, they all skyrocketed. And Nigerians began to consume more of cassava. So if we can deepen the consumption of cassava within our domestic food market, we can actually also have additional market opportunity of between $500 million to $1 billion. And then you talk about the regional market. If we take all these high-quality cassava flour, sugar, ethanol, sweeteners, and syrups, modified starch and adhesive, food grade starch, and sorbitol. If we just target between 5% and 10% of these derivatives within the West African and Central African sub-regional market, where Nigeria is the largest producer in the world. Nigeria produces 20% of the global production is from Nigeria, which amounts to 61 million metric tons. And you have a lot of people farming it, the largest of all crops, cultivation. 30% of the land area cultivated in this country is under cassava. Okay. And also the number of farmers farming cassava is 46% of the total number of farmers in this country, 40%. Which is 46%. 46%. Maize is the highest, 50%. But in terms of land area under cultivation of cassava is the highest. 30% of the total land area under arable land cultivation in Nigeria is for cassava. So that 46% is around 14 million farmers. So if we do this, that is why President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has looked at it. He is interested in spreading opportunities for Nigerians. So if we can actually transform this very sector that is second to maize and the largest in land area, it means the ripple effect, the cascading effect, the multiplier effect of whatever improvement that will come from it will translate to the vast majority of our people. And for instance, again, for women,
we'll get deeper into that conversation.
For women, 2 times more women farm cassava than men. Yeah. And it's a president that is interested in designing and orchestrating opportunities for women, for our rural women, so that they will be empowered and they will be better contributors to the socio-economic growth of this nation. Of this country.
Thank you so much for your opening comments there. Very insightful. So it's clear that production alone isn't, you know, the full picture. Now let's talk about policies, our next thing. And, you know, people say we must stop treating cassava as a mere food crop and start treating it as an economic weapon that could take the place of crude oil. Do you agree?
Definitely. Because there's vast potential in it. Like the Honorable Minister had stated, for quite a long time, Nigeria had remained the #1 producer. But when you look at the export, the trade index, Nigeria is nowhere to be seen. I will give you an instance. Nigeria produces 20% of the global production, but our export is $1 million. Thailand is $3.3 billion. You know what $3.3 billion industry can do to Nigeria? Outside oil, nothing again gets, no single commodity gets you $3.3 billion. Vietnam, $1.1 billion. So, and the market is expanding because the health consciousness, celtic disease, or gastrointestinal problem relating to gluten problem, the high quality cassava flour from cassava is gluten-free. And we must begin as a nation. That is what, Mr. President, economic diversification. We must begin to take our, just last month we were in Ethiopia. Ethiopia today is the largest producer of wheat in Africa, and they are self-sufficient. But they have another carbohydrate source local before the wheat came in. They call it teff, njari. When you go to any restaurant, big 5-star hotels, they have bread, pastries, buns, all of them made from njari, 100%. So why can't you begin to patronize ours? All these companies in Nigeria, when you ask them why are they importing the sweeteners and syrups, a whole lot of these companies, breweries, the rest of them, because they talk about the lack of the supply. And the price competitiveness of these materials from Nigeria is 2 or 3 times high. How can we do that? Just like the Honorable Minister had talked about, increasing the yield, because there are the key drivers you can actually unlock. Cassava industrialization can only come through unlocking a combination of key drivers and enablers within the ecosystem. What are the drivers? The drivers is the yield, enhancing the yield, treating the soil, the seed system, because currently we have the lack of availability of industrial varieties with enough starch, given that it's not properly commercialized. But the president wants to commercialize it, set all the drivers and enablers in motion. This, I'm talking about the seed system, the productivity, and then you talk about the high rates of post-harvest losses. I will give you an instance. For the year, the average for the 3 top exporters, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, is 22.7 tons per hectare. Our own average is 6.1, even less than the African average, which is 8.1, and the global average is 10.3. Then the post-harvest processing. These countries, the high post-harvest rate, these countries 7.7%, Nigeria is between 25 to 45 to 40% post-harvest losses. So what are we going to do to these? Are putting all like the minister, they have the mandate from the president, the ministry, to set up the institutional framework to make sure that all these designs are institutionalized and embedded within the farming communities. And then, what is the percentage of processing? In Nigeria, it's just 10%. In these top 3 countries, it's 35%. So, what government is doing, working in all of government approach, not in silo, Federal Ministry of Industry, the research institutes, the financial sector, Nigerian Cassava Investment Accelerator that is orchestrating deals and coordinating, anchor processing, outgrower, and block farming. All these things are being done under the direction of Mr. President, who has shown interest, who has seen this commodity as a key driver of growth. A lot of 14 million farmers are farming, and more than half of them are women. So, not only trying to use it to transform and do industrial transformation, but also upliftment, economic livelihood upliftment of our rural communities, of our mothers, of our youths. So, I've just talked about the youth, the high post-harvest processing, the drivers, and the insufficient processing capacity. Like I said, these countries are 35% processing, and whereas we are 10% processing. And then also open up access to markets, because other new industrial applications in the bioplastic has been projected to constitute around 7.7 billion or 2% of the $285 billion plastic processing market. And if we can, as a nation, tap into just 20% of that, that gives you $1.6 billion investment. So these are all numerous opportunities that the president has seen, as a president who is not just dependent on oil alone. As he's working on cassava, he's also working on all other value chains that can be scaled to bring in economic transformation in terms of foreign exchange, any import substitution, employment generation, revival of moribund industries, job creation for our teeming youth. So it's a whole lot. When you look at the chain of commodities that are within, derivatives within the cassava, they said, and the different industries, if you begin to sub it all, it's not only one company. Hundreds of companies will be involved to be able to get only the sorbitol that is required within Nigeria, talk less of the export. And how can we begin to export also, or to also discourage our local producers from importing? By reducing the unit cost. How do you reduce the unit cost? By increasing the yield per hectare, so that if we are producing average 6.1 ton per hectare, and in Thailand is producing 22.7 ton per hectare, there is no way their own will not be much more cheaper, because they are like 7 times more. So the unit cost will be lower. So these are all the different policy framework, and how do we do that? That's what the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is doing through the seed system, the National Root Crop Research Institute, and then open up access to markets, helping, working in synergy with the private sector. They will tell us what are the policy framework or regulation that government should do to help them. And the enablers, what are the enablers? The enablers is coordination and orchestration. You talk about the anchor processing, the outgrower, the block farming. You talk about the funding and capital mechanism. How do you, is it structured financing, the different financing mechanism, and that is where government comes in. And then you talk about the policy framework. What are the requirements? What do we need to do as a government to help our private sectors to compete those that are dumping these materials into the nation, and also help us to take advantage of the markets that exist outside the Nigerian. Yes. I will give you an instance, just the tapioca alone. Indonesia takes 80 to 85%. Why can't we work to get under 15%? That is what the president wants. And not only the 15%, because if we can just double our yield, our price per this thing will come down, just like last year, because of the massive incentive by this president has never happened before in this nation, that the price, the output, the productivity was high. That was why this glut you are talking about is thanks to the president's policy. Like, I'll give you an instance. Last year, he gave 2.15 million bags of NPK fertilizer, given directly to farmers, not other times where it's given to RNG farmers. That has actually translated into increase in production, and that increase in production that you are seeing that is bringing down the unit cost, and that is what you are talking about, growth. So we now have to move from the production, tackling the post-harvest losses, and move to the other end, which is increasing the processing capacity and expansion of access to market and market linkages. With that, you will see cassava as having a much stronger, much robust, and much laudable contribution to the economic upliftment of millions of Nigerians.
Huge potential here that can be harnessed. Al-Hassan, if you can hear me, just go ahead with your... Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening.
Evening. Go ahead.
I must say this is one of the most wonderful programs I'm privileged to witness in Nigeria in this very era. And I'm seriously encouraged by the way and manner the analysis is being done by the special advisor, the Honorable Minister, and the gentleman in white there from the private industry. This is one of the most enlightening programs for wheat farmers in the environment around the state. Like personally, I have a very strategic question concerning how there is a plan to capture the farmers who cultivate sizes of land like 100 hectares of cassava, and the power tussle in the agricultural system, looking down from the Ministry of Agri, from the federal level to the state level, and the AgPE that have been hijacked by some individuals that make it so rigorously difficult for we to go into production, like he is saying. For example, I as an individual, I have a land of about 100 hectares, and I'm just able to work on 30 hectares because of the exorbitant cost of hiring tractor. And even when such is deployed by the government, some individuals hijack such resources, and you know very well it's in the environment, it's in the state, but you cannot have access to it. Like the issue of fertilizer, like the special advisor was talking about. For government to have access to meet the grassroots farmer one-on-one, person to person, is one thing we are really, really clamoring for at this level. As a matter of fact, I am one of the least cassava large farm owner in the state, at the coastal state territory environment to be precise. We have over 5,000 hectares of land farmable here. But the challenge we're having is what is special advisor to the executive president was just telling us. You have resources deployed by federal government, the ministry, like the fertilizer, herbicide, the power tillers, and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's so difficult to get to the real farmers. Only the political farmers have access to this. Please, dear Honorable Special Advisor, I really appreciate your elaboration, your analysis, your key strategic planning from your level that has to do with government intention in making the value of cassava production, both at the grassroots level and at the national level of recognition, to be fully harnessed its potential. birthplace. Is there any way the farmers can fully be assessed to know who are the real farmers and the political farmers? Because I must tell you categorically, I was encouraging to this to leave my job in Jos, Plateau State, because of the way and manner I have discovered a lot of viable resources that is achievable through cassava farming. But having been in the field for the past 6 years, on production that has, on cultivation of land that has been in my possession for years, it is so difficult to access government. It is so difficult to access funding.
Okay.
It is so difficult to even access public-private partnership. Why? There is a serious media hijack between political farmers and the real farmers.
Okay, Al-Hassan.
What is the government doing to address this breach of connection to the most realistic farmers?
Okay, Al-Hassan, thank you so much. I think you've made your point. Let me go to the Honorable Minister before I come to the Special Assistant to address the issues you've raised here. I
will just add a little based on what Al-Hassan said before I address your question. You talked about tractorization, lack of access to the tractors. You know, there is a program called the Green Imperative. I was here 2 months ago with the Honorable Minister. We talked about it. This thing has been in the works since 2016. But when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR came in, he understood the importance of getting this GIP. And that was why he fast-tracked the process and got it up and running. And what is the GIP? It's made up of 2 components, type 1, type 2. Type 1 is primary production. That's where the tractors come in. It will be in 642 local governments. And then you have type 2, which is post-primary production processing, and 132, making it 774 local governments. So there will be a service center in each of the local governments in this country. Alhaji Al-Hassan, I believe your local government will have that tractor service center. So why these people are hiding tractor, what you've said or not? Because the supply is less than the demand. If the demand is more, why would you go and pack tractor? You have to bring out your own and be scout for customers. You have to look for customers. You know, when we had few banks, they don't go out looking for customers. You go to the bank to queue to. But now you have many banks. They are the one looking for customers. So any bank that is saying, oh, if you don't bring 1 million to open an account, nobody is going to come to you. So, Mr. President, being a technocrat, administrator, a politician, he took a holistic view about all this problem and said, no, we have to enhance the supply side of these drivers, enablers of agricultural production, which cassava is one of them. And that is why the GIP was passed. It's a $1.2 billion partnership between Nigerian government and Brazil. Even yourself is qualified. You can apply. You can go and Google about the Green Imperative project and begin to know the process to qualify. You can be the service center. You can be the one to be renting out tractors to your fellow farmers in your community, in your local government. Secondly, not even the recently launched tractor scheme. More than 2,000 tractors. It has never been done in this country. Because the president understands the need to have all these things reaching our... If you take it now, you have more than 2 tractors per local government. That will help to reduce, that demand-supply gap. He wants to fill the gap. And that is there. So what you need to do is to pay attention to government policies, be in tune with what government is doing, be positive, be supportive of government policies so that you can understand and you'll find a way to leverage. As I'm talking to you, I believe you should be googling on how you can either participate in the Green Imperative project or the recently launched thousands of tractors and harvesters and bulldozers nobody has ever brought bulldozer for land clearing as a government intervention in the history of this nation except this president. And he deserves a complete accolade and praise by a farmer like you. And back to what you have said on how...
I have to hold, before you answer my question, I have to put you on hold there. Umar Anache is calling us from Benin Kebbi. Umar Anache, go ahead. Umar Anache, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi. Go ahead. Go ahead.
My name is Umar Anache, calling from Benin Kebbi. I'm popularly known as Comrade Anache. You are a living witness in Nigeria when Uncle Borowa was launched in Kebbi, here in Kebbi. But at the end of the day, it was not allowed to see the light of the day due to the corruption and the other unnecessary engagement of those operators. What can you do different to see that this Cassava initiative is allowed to see the light of the day? Then, secondly, what assurance can you give us that those banks, like Agricultural Bank and Bank of Industry, can be set aside for the loan which have less interest rate, something like one digit interest? What assurance can you give us that this program will not fail like Uncle Borowa program? And finally, can you in any way want to check how Uncle Borowa program failed so that you will build from there? May God continue to bless our country. Thank you.
Dr. Uzo. And then Prof to also respond to that.
One of the ways you can use to make sure that you don't repeat the failures of that, because like Honorable Minister has stated, there is a massive interest and investment and plan by the federal government on identifying, targeting the farm registration, where you capture the farmer with his BVN, with his fingerprint, with his demographic data, how many children, how many wives. So you can begin to do proper mapping and targeting. And also, using satellite imagery, you capture the physical-chemical properties of the soil so that the farmer can actually farm some, more often than not, what leads to outside the poor input, the poor lack of access to input and poor seed varieties, and even within our soils that have not been maintained. Where you are supposed to plant maize, you plant rice. Where you are supposed to plant rice, you plant millet. So these are part of the package of practice that is being desired by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture on this farm registration, where you capture the farmer, the BVN, the NIN number, and then you have access to their financial record, their socioeconomic and demographic attribute data, different attribute data that will make up with. I cannot begin to list them, but there are more than 40 attribute data. And then you're also using satellite imagery and advanced technology and the soil test the package that Honorable Minister is working to launch to know the right soil, so that while you do that, you tie it down to extension and you have targeted precision extension guidance to the farmers, and that all will help the farmers to have enough production. When they have enough production, they will be able to pay back any facility that has been extended to them. That's one. You talked about Bank of Agri, Bank of Industry. Bank of Industry has a low interest special package. You have to do your research. More often than not, as a Nigerian citizen, we tend to always look out for the negative story from government, but there are the positive stories that their people are not looking out for them, like the Bank of Industry. They have a low interest loan, and the Bank of Agriculture was close to being moribund. It is out of the magnanimity of Mr. President and his understanding and his desire to see the spreading and diversification of opportunity for Nigerians across every socioeconomic ladder. That is why he is reactivating and refinancing, rejuvenating the Bank of Agriculture to support Bank of Industry in delivering, these financial packages that will help support our farmers, our smallholder farmers within the farming communities who may not be, financially competent enough to access from the commercial banks. You know that nobody has been talking about Bank of Industry for the last 20 years, but it's this president that has reestablished it. You've heard about the different pronouncements from government refinancing. So you take time, study, so that you can partake. Already, the Bank of Industry is doing something on the low interest capacity, and the president is being ranked under him as the best performing private sector bank, public sector bank, which can compete with the private sector bank. So we have to encourage government. We have to be very positive And that's the truth of the matter is tune in with what government is doing. If you tune in, you have the positive mindset to follow through and to benefit, to walk through the steps to benefit from the program. I tell you, the president does not want to repeat the mistakes of the anchor borrower. That is why it was discontinued. So that those mistakes that have been institutionalized by the people manning it will not continue. He's a president who is interested in delivering results. Okay. And the result is transformation of the agribusiness ecosystem in Nigeria, be it cassava, be it rice, be it maize, be it livestock. Just like he created the Ministry of Livestock, it's never been created. Just like he separated the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy to give a razor focus attention on all these value chains and drivers of socio-economic transformation and development in the country.
Okay, thank you. Prof, let's have your final thoughts. How do we begin to overcome the challenges that may hinder the full implementation of the Cassava initiative?
It's bringing the enablers to the forefront and starting with orchestration and coordination of funding and capital mechanisms and policy framework and regulations. So all these things has to work together, none will work in silo. You need to, and that is what the federal government is doing. That is just like the Honorable Minister just alluded, the ministry is doing, and they are getting the full support from the presidency. Also leveraging the National Economic Council, the Vice President is also bringing the subnationals to the table wherever we need any unlocking from them. The Vice President is on board, the President is on board. That's why the National Agricultural Development Fund is being financed. That's the policy and regulation from government side, the Bank of Agri, the Bank of Industry. The coordination and orchestration, like we had that stakeholder engagement, we did proper mapping, getting the key gatekeepers within the cassava value chain ecosystem, bringing them everybody on board, and the funding and capital mechanism, the National Agricultural Development Fund, and every other the improved budgetary allocation to Ministry of Agriculture to drive this, and having a specific line budget in the ministry targeting cassava.
Okay, I have to pause you there. Prof, let's have your final thoughts.
Right, thank you. And this is a great opportunity for Nigeria. And we at the National Root Crop Research Institute in Umudike, we are here to make sure that we get the right seed, the right varieties that will power this. If you get the seed wrong, then the whole program is going to collapse. So we hope to give you the right seeds and the right varieties. But we also want to go into improving the production. You've heard that over and over. And it has a lot has to do with research. Improving production, the production technologies is important. But we won't end there. We want to improve the processes. Some of the processes would include how do you engage the smallholder farmers to be plugged into the big processors. That is, areas that we are very strong in. And we want to also improve the products, new products. We cannot keep producing the old products and look for new results. New products will, ginger or stimulate new excitement and new, resources available. And I also think we need to look into training of farmers and retraining of farmers. We need to make sure that they understand the value of getting the right seed. They understand the value of using the right agronomic practices, and then they understand how to do it, how they have access to agro inputs. Those are the things we are ready to do and to support the program.
I'll stop you there. Kabir, Shagaya, what's your advice to those wanting to go into this business?
So I'll just look at it
in 30 seconds.
I'll look at it from an investor's perspective.
Okay.
So I just listed out 5 things. From an investor coming into Nigeria, what Nigeria needs to do to make it easier for investors to come in. We need higher yields. We talked about higher yield today, from 6 tons per hectare to 35 to 40 tons, like the Honorable Minister mentioned. We need access to stems. The stem multiplier that the IITA just launched with the Vice President, that needs to be made accessible so people can get actual access to stems for planting cassava, and sensitization on how to plant these stems. We need access to patient capital and affordable finance. Single-digit interest rates to be able to make it affordable and easier for people to be able to access patient capital for farmers over the period of time. Logistics and storage. How to get things from your farm to processing plants to be able to receive the value of the crops that you're harvesting. We also need data on feedstock. Where are the farms in Nigeria and what's the data? So if we can get those things lined up, I can assure you that the investors will come in with all sorts of processing plants all over the country. Okay,
Kabir Shagaya, Director of Strategy, Cavista Holdings, Abia Farm. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for your time on Tuesday Live today. Professor Chiedozie Egesi, Executive Director and CEO, National Root Crops Research Institute, Umedike, Abia State. Thank you for coming on the program and taking your time to come. We appreciate you. And Dr. Kingsley Uzoma, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agribusiness and Productivity Enhancement, Office of the Vice President. As always, I've interviewed, this is my second interview with you, I think. As always, we thank you so much for your time. And the key is simple but urgent. Connect policy to practice, farms to factories, and vision to investment. That's Tuesday Live for today. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for watching. I am Jumai Yusuf.